Lost in jungle, bred by alien tribe. The crash. The impact shattered the morning. Dr. Elena Voss clutched the shuttle controls as alarms screamed around her, the green canopy of Thesara rushing up to meet her like a wave. Metal shrieked against ancient trees, and then silence. She woke to emerald shadows and pain lancing through her ribs. The shuttle had torn a gash through the jungle, leaving her stranded on a planet marked forbidden by every galactic authority. Elena dragged herself from the wreckage, her botanist mind cataloging details, even through the haze. Flowers the size of dinner plates, trees that seemed to breathe, air thick with impossible fragrances. She'd made it perhaps 20 meters when her legs gave out. The figures that found her seemed to materialize from light itself. Two beings, humanoid but otherworldly, their skin shifting with opalescent colors like oil on water. The taller one had markings of silver across his shoulders, eyes the color of deep water. His companion was smaller, more delicate, with patterns of violet trailing down her arms. Elena tried to speak, but darkness pulled at the edges of her vision. She felt gentle hands lifting her, heard melodic voices speaking in a language that sounded like wind through leaves. When she woke again, she lay on something soft in a structure woven from living vines. The violet-marked one sat nearby, grinding something in a carved wooden bowl. She looked up and smiled, the expression universal, despite her alien features. "You're safe," the being said, in halting but recognizable standard. "I am Serena. You are in the village of the Luminae." Elena tried to sit up, wincing. Her ribs were wrapped in what looked like moss, but felt warm against her skin. Through the doorway she could see the settlement, homes grown from trees, bridges of twisted branches, and everywhere the silver-marked mail directing others with quiet authority. "The Grove Guardian found you," Serena continued, following her gaze. "Kale doesn't trust outsiders, but he carried you here himself." Elena watched Kale move through the village, powerful and graceful, and felt something stir beneath her curiosity. Why? Serena's smile turned sad. Perhaps he sensed what we need most. She gestured outside, where Elena now noticed browning leaves among the green. "Our forest is dying." The dying forest. Elena spent 3 days recovering before Serena allowed her to explore. The settlement was unlike anything in her xenobotany texts. Structures that grew rather than were built, pathways that shifted with the seasons, and everywhere the Luminae moving in quiet harmony with their environment. But the harmony was breaking. Kale found her examining a withered vine near the village center. "You should rest," he said, his standard more fluent than Serena's but accented with musical undertones. "I'm a botanist," Elena replied, not looking up. "This is resting for me." She touched the vine gently, noting the discoloration. "This isn't disease. It's like the plant is forgetting how to live." Something shifted in Kale's expression. "Come with me." He led her beyond the village to what he called the Sacred Grove, a circular clearing where massive trees formed a living cathedral, or should have. Half the trees stood bare, their bark gray and cracking. The sight made Elena's chest ache. "For 3 generations the groves have been failing," Kale said quietly. "Our elders remember when every tree glowed with life. Now—" He touched a dying trunk, and for a moment his stoic mask slipped, revealing raw pain. Elena stepped closer, examining the soil. As her fingers brushed the earth, something extraordinary happened. A small flower nearby unfurled, its petals brightening from dull brown to vibrant gold. Both of them froze. "Do that again," Kale breathed. Elena touched another patch of ground. More flowers responded, color spreading like ripples in a pond. She looked at her hands in wonder. "I don't understand," I'm just human. There's nothing special about my biochemistry. There is to Thesara. Kael knelt beside her, close enough that she could see the intricate patterns in his skin, like galaxies beneath the surface. The elders spoke of this in the old songs, a visitor whose life essence could wake sleeping roots. Their eyes met, and Alana felt electricity arc between them. Not the mysterious energy that had made the flowers bloom, but something far more human, or perhaps universal. "Will you help us?" Kael asked, and the vulnerability in his voice cracked something open in her chest. "Yes," Elena whispered. "However I can."
The Ritual of Roots. The ceremony was set for the new moon, giving Elena 2 weeks to prepare. She spent every day in the sacred grove with Kael, mapping the blight's progression while he taught her about Lumini customs and the forest's deeper mysteries. Working beside him, Elena discovered the man beneath the Guardian's reserve. Kael had lost his bonded partner to the blight 5 years ago, had watched her fade as the trees faded, powerless to help. He devoted himself to finding a cure, pushing away comfort, accepting his role as protector, but never allowing himself to simply be. "You carry too much alone," Elena told him one afternoon as they rested in the dappled shade. "I'm the Grove Guardian. It's my burden to carry." "Burdens are lighter when shared." She placed her hand over his on the ground between them. The touch sent warmth spiraling through her, and around them, dormant seeds began to sprout. Kael stared at their joined hands, then at her face, something like wonder dawning in his expression. "You're doing it again, making things grow." "Maybe it's not just me," Elena said softly. "Maybe it's us." The night of the ritual, Serena painted Elena's arms with luminescent symbols while the tribe gathered around the largest dying tree. The air hummed with anticipation and ancient power. Kael stood waiting in the grove's center, stripped to the waist, his silver markings glowing faintly. The sight of him stole Elena's breath, alien and magnificent, and somehow familiar, as if her soul had been searching for him across galaxies. The elders began their song, voices weaving harmonies that seemed to rise from the earth itself. Serena guided Elena forward until she stood face to face with Kael. "Give me your hands," he said quietly. She did. And the moment their palms pressed together over the sacred soil, power exploded through them both. Elena gasped as energy poured from her core, through Kael, into the ground beneath their feet. The tree above them shuddered, bark brightening from gray to rich brown, leaves unfurling in impossible fast motion. But Elena barely noticed the miracle happening around them. All her awareness centered on Kael, the way he looked at her like he was his salvation. The heat of his skin against hers, the rightness of this connection that transcended species and worlds. Between two worlds. The forest's transformation didn't happen overnight, but its pulse had returned. Elena could feel it every morning when she woke, a thrumming awareness that connected her to Thesara's living heartbeat, and to Kael. They worked together daily now, moving from grove to grove, their joined presence coaxing life back into dormant roots. But something had shifted between them since the ritual. The professional distance had burned away, leaving raw want neither could quite voice. "Tell me about Earth," Kael said one evening, as they sat by a stream, their ritual work complete. Elena described cities of glass and steel, oceans she'd studied, the academic halls where she'd spent her youth chasing knowledge. But as she spoke, the memories felt distant, belonging to someone else. "I was good at my work, but I was alone. Always moving between research stations, never staying long enough to belong anywhere." "And now?" Kel's voice was careful, but his eyes held unmistakable hope. Before Elena could answer, her datapad chirped, the sound jarringly artificial in the organic peace of the forest.
Her rescue beacon had finally connected to a passing ship. Help was coming. The joy she should have felt never arrived. Kale stood abruptly, his expression shuddering closed. "You'll be glad to return home." "Elena!" She reached for him, but he was already walking away, his shoulders rigid. Serena found her an hour later, crying by the stream. The Lumine woman sat beside her, offering silent comfort until Elena could speak. "I don't want to leave, but how can I ask to stay? This isn't my world." "Isn't it?" Serena asked gently. "The forest knows you now. And Kale," she smiled sadly, "I've known him since we were children. He hasn't let himself feel anything in years. Until you." Elena spent 3 sleepless nights wrestling with her choice. Earth held her career, her published research, the recognition she'd worked decades to earn. But Thesara held something she'd never found in all those lonely years. Purpose that filled her soul, and a connection that felt like coming home. On the 4th night, she found Kale in the sacred grove, standing beneath the tree they'd saved together. "I'm not leaving." He turned, disbelief and desperate hope warring in his expression. "Elena, you can't sacrifice your world for—" She closed the distance between them, cupping his face in her hands. "I'm not sacrificing anything. I'm choosing everything I've ever wanted." Then she kissed him. The forest exploded with light around them, flowers blooming in spirals of color. But Elena was lost in the taste of him, the way his arms wrapped around her like he'd never let go, the rightness of their bodies pressed together. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Kale rested his forehead against hers. "Stay with me. Forever." "Yes."
The eternal bloom. 2 years later, Elena stood in the heart of the sacred grove, watching Lumini children play among trees that now glowed with vibrant health. The forest had fully recovered, more alive than even the oldest elders remembered. New groves had sprouted where there had been only death, and the Lumini spoke of their blessed visitor in songs that would outlive stars. But Elena didn't feel like a savior. She felt like someone who'd finally found her place. "There you are." Kel's arm slid around her waist from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder. "Serena is asking when we'll host the harvest ceremony." Elena leaned back into his warmth, marveling at how natural this had become. "Tell her next new moon. I want time to finish cataloging the northern groves first." "Always working," Cal murmured, affection thick in his voice. He turned her in his arms, and the love in his eyes still made her breath catch. "Though I suppose I shouldn't complain. Your work saved us all." "We saved each other," Elena corrected, touching the subtle patterns that had begun appearing on her own skin, proved that Thesara had claimed her as thoroughly as she'd claimed it. The rescue ship had come and gone, taking only her recorded data and a message for her colleagues. She'd found a discovery worth staying for. They'd been furious, then baffled, then eventually accepting. A few still sent messages asking when she'd return, never understanding that she was already home. At night, she and Kel would lie together in their dwelling, a living structure the forest had grown for them, and he would trace the new patterns on her skin while she counted the bioluminescent stars through the canopy. They would talk about their day, plan their next grove restoration, and make love with the tenderness of those who'd found something rare and precious. Serena had become like a sister, teaching Elena the deeper mysteries of Lumini culture while learning about human music and art in return. The tribe had embraced her fully, no longer seeing alien, but family. As the sun set over Thesara, painting the sky in shades of violet and gold, Kel pulled Elena closer. "Do you ever regret staying?" She thought of the lonely woman who'd crashed here, brilliant but adrift, respected but never truly known. Then she looked at Kel, at the forest they'd healed together, at the life they'd built together. "Not for a single moment," she whispered, and kissed him as the forest sang around them. Lessons. True belonging isn't found where you're from, but where your heart takes root and grows. Love that transforms us is worth every world we leave behind. The greatest discoveries aren't made in laboratories, but in the courage to embrace the unknown. Home is not a place, but a connection to land, to purpose, and to those who see our truest selves.